Hello and welcome to the Euphoria podcast. This is season 6, season 7. This is season 7, episode 6. Numbers. What do they do? How do they work?
Let's find out.
Let's find out. That voice that you're hearing right now is none other than Ender. Ender's going to be our special guest for the week because, spoiler, we're going to be making a dope tier list. It won't just be Caedrel all on his lonesome this time. We're going to work together to update the tier list.
The power of friendship.
The power of friendship.
Yeah.
As always, we're available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. So if you're listening on one of those platforms and would prefer something different, mix it up a little bit. You know, keep your Euphoria relationship fresh. Maybe a little YouTube spice here and there. Maybe back over to the Spotify just for some kicks. You know, whatever,
Dabble and everything.
Whatever gets you going. This week, I had mentioned it already. We're going to be doing a tier list, but we're also going to be predicting which teams are going to make playoffs with some wild stakes. I will say
What is the Euphoria without its bets?
Yeah, well, I'm excited for this. Ender's involved too, so Ender will be making
I've been waiting a long time for this.
Ender will be making the comeback for the episode where we do eventually resolve the bet.
Can you imagine the first time he comes on the show for a bet, and then he's the one that's not in the
loses,
bet? Or that's actually even worse if he loses.
We bring him on twice a year, and he just gets fucking destroyed in a bet both times.
You love to see it.
I'm winning.
There it is. So we're also going to talk to Vitality a little bit today about their struggles. Hear from Duke about what we can expect from the team coming up. We're going to predict who's going to make the final playoffs. We're going to rate teams. We're going to talk a little bit about week 5. There's really just kind of everything in this episode. We might even run a little bit long. So if you're on a tight schedule, maybe split your viewing into 2 different sections. One before your lunch break, one after your lunch break, like whatever.
We're suggesting them how to watch, how to dabble in each different platform when they're fragmented.
I'm just giving them options.
Is there an official way to watch or listen to Euphoria? Like, what's the correct way?
Well, with your ears helps.
I think what you'll find is that if you head over to riotgames.com/merch and purchase stuff, and then, I don't know, I'm trying to shill, but I don't know what I should shill for.
It was a good start.
What you can do is you can pull out a Red Bull.
Okay.
And go into your kitchen and pour that into your Bico blender along with the other things that you would use to make
you're blending a Red Bull.
A healthy smoothie. But it's a healthy caffeine
and
morning
you know what you
smoothie.
could do with that healthy smoothie? You could go on your browser and open up my stream and watch it in the morning.
You could open it twitch.tv/Caedrel or twitch.tv/Endercast.
That's the one.
There you go.
Why'd you have to ask it like a question?
It's just pure
Because I
sellouts.
can't remember who's... Because every caster either has their name, which is rare, but Caedrel, one of those, or you're I'm blank, so there's I'm Frosk, I'm LS, whatever, or you're Endercast, Medicast, Drakos,
And then you have Vedius Official. What's going on there?
Yeah. That's a mystery. Let us know what you think. Vedius Official. Is that the naming convention? Is I'm blank the best name?
It's because there's so many like fake Vediuses, Explainius. It has to be the official one.
There's so many fake accounts.
Yeah.
That's just, you just challenged by this. The verification tick is mandatory for Vedius. You don't understand. There's so many people just pretending to be him. So let's talk about week 5. What stood out to you? What was crazy? What caught you off guard? Because it was a weird week of League of Legends, I would say.
I think the most surprising thing to me was Sjokz decided to do that monologue. That's what caught me off guard the most. Like, come on. That's 2 in a row, baby.
The power to curse.
The curse power, yeah.
The funny thing is she chose the perfect game to do it because, like, there's nothing wrong can happen here, right? It's Vitality versus Fnatic. Of course, Fnatic win it, and then curses are real.
That was our definitive proof that Sjokz has magic powers.
I believe in wizardry now. Harry Potter, real.
And honestly, just
real.
like
Sjokz
bless up that we're
monologues.
not in the 1600s anymore. There'd be people being like, we have to throw her in the lake with the stones. If she floats, she's a witch. If she sinks, she's not.
It's the 21st century. I think people are still saying that on Twitter.
Oh, no. Gosh. Guys, take it down a notch.
Witch hunts. No, yeah, for me, I think Vitality beating Fnatic was the biggest thing. Barring the monologue and the curse itself, it was just like a clean game. Yes, I think there was a lot of members on Fnatic running it down, perhaps. But for me, over the entire weekend, that was the biggest surprise to me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely fair. I was not ready for Fnatic's downturn. I was actually expecting Fnatic to kind of like kick it up a notch this week, but it was a bit of a mess. I feel bad for Hylissang, especially. I feel like, he's obviously the guy that always looks like he's running it and there are losses because he just always has so many deaths. But even in this game, they had a couple clean tower dives on bot. Like, it was looking all right. And then it was just...
But I will say, including their game the next day against Mad Lions on Saturday, I think Upset's been stepping up a lot on Fnatic. Like, he was really smurfing that Mad Lions game and almost single-handedly carried his entire team in a team fight on Drake where he was literally 1v4 and killed 3 people. So, I mean, Upset's been playing really well. I think just Fnatic overall have found too much aggression again for some reason.
Yeah, I'd also say on the Hylissang point in particular, like Hylissang died a lot, but it was not his fault. Like he was letting himself take the fall for his team time and time again, like just all over the place. So he definitely not the scapegoat this week.
Hylissang is the martyr of Fnatic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bless up to Hylissang.
He just saves anyone else's KDAs and just murders his own.
It's actually such a good strategy though for a support, because like no support stats suck. We actually don't have any good statistics to track like how impactful support is, but we use KDAs or like AD carry stats all the time. So whatever you can do as a support to buff your AD carry stats will purely make your team look better.
You know what I think? I think that we need to implement a new thing called the Titanic stat or something like this, or I will always love you stat, where supports sacrifice themselves for their other teammates, and in the amount of times, however high it is, they're like the MVP.
I understand. I thought you meant like Titanic Hydra. I was like, where are we going with this?
Oh, no, it's like, no. It's more like an I will always love
I
you
thought it
moment
was
in
more like
Hylissang.
the Titanic.
Yeah, it was like when Niski was ulting out on Rise, I think it was, and Hylissang headbutts him away at the last second and goes out of the Rise portal and saves him from being able to get away. And it's like, yeah. You love to see it.
Yeah, speaking of, similar to the Titanic stack, it's like the fake Titanic stat, which I think, sadly, Torre was the winner of this week, where it's like, Torre, there's clearly room on the door. You don't need to sacrifice yourself. But he's like, guys, I will give my life for the cause. They're like, what cause, dude? What are you talking about? Like, literally no one is asking you. And he's like, in we go.
Tori's staring down the iceberg. He says full steam ahead.
He like stands on the front with a spear and he's like, I will stop the iceberg. And you're like, I think we need to get off the ship, dude.
It's
He's like, nope.
Yeah, you can refer to so many films like the Gandalf, you shall not pass, but no one's there. No one's trying to pass. And
The
he's
bridge
going
is
in.
collapsing and he's like, don't worry, guys, I'll hold them back. It's like, what are you talking about? There's no one there.
No, come back. And you see him going in. Oh, no.
Oh, it was brutal.
I hate to see it.
Well, overall, I mean, it was an interesting week, and I think definitely a lot of teams that were looking promising in the first half of the round robin kind of a lot of wind was taken out of a lot of sails this week, I think, and put into different sails is the simplest way to, not the simplest way, but the way that I've chosen to explain it. So why don't we jump into the tier list? For those of you who have not seen a Euphoria tier list today, we're going to be going through S through D tier. Basically, the higher you are, like S tier is like you are a contender for the title. A tier is like top 4 making playoffs in good run. B is like you're making playoffs, but it's like close. You're a playoffs contender. C is like you're all right, but you're not making playoffs. And D is like, oh, yikes. D is like, oh, like D is the reason that D is not F tier is just because like we wanted to make the tier list seem more favorable, but D is bad.
Is it bad that I have 4 teams in D tier?
That's not good.
That's not good. Quick
shit.
quick recap. Last time we did this in the preseason coming in. Caedrel had a tier list you can see on your screen now, or if you're in podcast land, I'll read it off to you.
Oh, there it is.
Simultaneously, we also did a Twitter ranking list where we asked people to rank their top 10 in order. So not a tier list, but just a team ranking order. So starting with Caedrel's tier list, S tier was G2 and Rogue. A tier was Fnatic. B tier was Schalke, No Fear, and Mad Lions. C tier was Misfits, Astralis, SK Gaming. D was Vitality and Excel.
I think I got
not a bad job.
I think some of them are right. Some of them are questionable. Like Mad Lions beating Fnatic. You argue that could change around.
Yeah.
SK beating Schalke. You could argue those change around. And Astralis and Misfits sucking. So you could argue those could go down a tier.
But I would say nothing's like 2 tiers off, right? If any, it's like it moves 1 up or down, and then you're looking
I'd say not
good.
bad. I think that's the hardest thing with like spring split predicting. It's like the whole off season. Everyone's a completely different team. It's like you just have to flip it sometimes.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I don't really know how you would really get a super accurate tier list, because even you knowing you coming in, you talk to people, you talk to teams about scrims, but like most of the teams that you talk to that were like, we are smashing it in scrims. Half of them came on stage and like ran it in their first week. You know what I mean?
That preseason scrims are the most useless fake data. This was all based on preseason. Because
remember,
scrims.
Schalke's first week they ran it. Like they turned it around. They went on that 4-game win streak. But like we were like, oh yeah, Schalke, miracle run. They're gonna be good. And then week 1 they were just boom, just like hard running.
And then they beat G2 and Rogue, and everyone was like, oh, they're back again.
It's
back on the train.
Miracle.
They got their new tickets. They're on the front of the train, and then they just crashed into Astralis, and they're like, oh no.
I swear, I want you both to promise me we will not use Miracle Run anymore. I'm like, it's been completely burned.
Yeah,
it's over. We murdered it. Yeah.
Okay, what should we call it now? The marathon sprint?
To be fair.
Or something? The Schalke marathon? We're going to make it in summer.
They're doing HIIT. It's just high intensity training where they just like run it for like a week at full speed, and then they're back like 4-0 win streak, and then they run it again. So that's what I think the Schalke trend is. We're going 4-4-4-4-4.
Keeping up the tempo.
Yeah, just have to just a disciplined cardio training regime here
I like
for
it.
Sjokz.
I like it a lot.
On the opposite side, the Twitter ranking list again was from 100 responses to a tweet. So small sample size overall, but pretty good, I think, to get a general reading of what people expected coming to the split. First place, unanimously G2 Esports. Second place, Fnatic. Third place was Rogue. Fourth place was Mad Lions. Fifth place was Sjokz and Fear. Sixth was Misfits. Seventh was Excel. 8 was Vitality. 9 was SK. 10, Astralis, by a huge margin. To be clear, Astralis got an average score of 9.59. So, like, very few people put them anything but 10th overall.
Poor Astralis. But I do think that the incorporation of Magic Felix has helped them a little bit. I don't know how. Just slotting in a Corki late game has just made them better somehow. Like, almost beating teams like Rogue. It's like, what's going on?
Why don't we...
Or G2, sorry.
The way that I want to do this is I want to go through in reverse order of the Twitter ranking list. And Phil, if you can swap over to the Twitter ranking list and the standings so people in YouTube land have a reference to look at. If you're not familiar with the standings, one more time to read through for everyone, podcast world. Rogue 9-2, G2 9-2. They're both tied for first. Mad Lions in third, 7-4. SK and Fnatic are tied in fourth at 6-5. XL and Sjokz and Fear are tied in 6th at 5-6. Astralis is in 8th with Misfits at 3-8. Vitality, sole possession of 10th place at 2-9. So how we're going to do this, we're going to go in reverse order of the original Twitter ranking list. We'll take the public perception to kick us off to give us a little bit of structure here. So we're going to start by talking about Astralis. We're going to figure out what tier they're going to go into. Now, Caedrel, you've already brought up, hey, they're looking a little bit better, but are they free from D tier? That's the question that I want your input and that I want your input on as well.
No, they're getting the big D stamp on their head.
No,
they're staying in D tier. I think. I mean, Magic Felix is good, but it's not like a caps level mid that you can slot in and push that team to a playoff spot. I don't think Astralis will make playoffs, but I mean, Magic Felix has helped them pick up wins. I mean, the only defense I have for Astralis is they almost beat G2 weirdly enough. Now, I don't know if that's because teams just don't know how to close out games in the early stages of the split and they can just sit there and scale with their Corki. But yeah, they did beat Misfits quite handily, I think it was, with the 1v2, things like this. But I'm not really sold on Astralis.
Yeah, so for me, Astralis, and piggybacking off of the Corki comment, I think that it follows into a very similar line of thinking of Excel farming wins in the early season, which was taking a lot of these very scaling picks, and then honestly, a lot of our teams making mistakes and not being able to close out effectively against them. So Magic Felix never really, I feel like, has had an insane early performance. You wouldn't expect that out of a Corki, but then he gets 3 items and he's 1v2ing in side lane. It's okay, that's just how the nature of the champion works.
Yeah, and it was also against Schalke, it was 1v2, sorry, I thought it was Misfit. But yeah, against Schalke, and Schalke was on a slump in a sense already. So it was were Schalke even a strong team at that point when they did win that game? Or was it just because we know Schalke is a very reactive team from the way you look at their games. Even against the top teams, I think they're more of a reactive team. I think ever since Pantheon and Olaf fell out of the meta, they're not very proactive. So I would just put Astralis in D tier just based on the fact that they only really won against Schalke in terms of just pure scaling, in my eyes.
I'm surprised that the G2 game doesn't give you guys more hope, but I guess I understand it when I look at the perspective of they chilled and they scaled. And ultimately, if you will go back and look at that game, as good as that game was, even with Magic Felix having a really bad early game, against Caps farming literally every Raptor camp, getting so far ahead. Magic Felix was still making plays around the map. I still feel like you can see that he's a relatively smart player, even if it's the champion Corki or if it's him individually that's not matching up to Caps. It's hard for me to say there, but at the end of the day, in that final fight, when it did matter, when the pressure was on, in those clutch kind of situations, he kind of choked it, right? He went in at a bad angle. It's debatable. Maybe he felt like if he executed a little bit better, he could have just one-shot Reckless and they win the fight, but he didn't win the fight when they had the one-man advantage after solo killing Caps on the sideline. If you solo kill Caps on the side lane, come into that fight and one-shot Reckless, this team is C tier instantly. Based solely on that moment, I feel like.
But you also have to argue, G2 are really good at losing to teams on losing streaks. They lost to Schalke last year when they were 0-7 or something, didn't they, in spring or summer? I think it was. They are really bad. I don't know if it's disrespect, but yeah, I don't know.
It's good PR, right? It's good
PR. It's good branding as well.
It's a charitable contribution from G2 to the league.
But Astralis also beat XL, so I guess they just outscaled them in a way, because even though I think that XL had a bad game where I think Toro was having a bad game and things like this, Jesla had one of his best games I've ever seen in his entire life in the LEC, and he was popping off, but I just think that there's too much scaling and there's not enough proactivity for me on that team.
Yeah, to be fair to Astralis, I was actually coming in and I was going to put them in C tier, but I think we're kind of because you said you had 4 teams in D tier, right? And in my mind, the gap between the gap between B tier and C tier is quite large. So I think it just comes down to how we end up doing this one. But I do feel like our playoffs is pretty in my mind, pretty clear.
Pretty clear. Okay, well, that's good. That's going to help the predictions later in the day. So for now, Astralis, Soul Team, currently in D tier, although it sounds like we're expecting a few more. I was willing to be generous. I'm still optimistic about this team is what I will say. I think it's fair to put them in D right now, but I feel like they are getting better. And when I look at week 1 Astralis compared to the Astralis you've seen in previous weeks, it's not like in week 1, the games were just collapsing because of so many tiny mistakes. Like it would be like Promise Q goes mid at the right time, but then he flops the execution a little bit. Or someone like goes for a gank right, but then they like fail to notice the jungler, right? Like on some clear vision. And it was just so many small, stupid mistakes. But when there's that many small mistakes, they like compound and they make a team look really, really bad. And while they're still sloppy, they still make mistakes. They're not 100% a great team. They look so much better compared to week 1.
I will agree with you on that statement. I think that the key thing for me is why I can't put them in a C tier team is the only way they picked up wins was either Corki mid or Skarner jungle. That was the only 2 ways that they could pick up wins. So they have to show me more than just Corki or Skarner to actually pick up these wins because those champions are so simple. One is just scaling and one is just flash R, the AD carry, and you get an objective. So if they can win on other things, like perhaps things like a Jarvan, which is proactive, or Lilia jungle and a more proactive mid like a Ryze, then I'll definitely bump them up to C tier instantly.
Yeah. I think next team on our list, this was rated 9th. Probably one of the biggest shifts, I imagine, from the original Twitter ranking tier list. 8.03 was their average score. SK Gaming. Where do you guys feel about SK Gaming? Because I've said it on the desk and I said it last week. I'm low key on the hype train, but I don't want to like come in.
Same.
Super. Okay, sweet. Tell me, like.
Okay, you hit me first, Ender. What are you thinking?
Okay, no, I'm liking SK. I think that like week on week they are growing on me as a team, and I think the biggest problem with this team is I do feel like they are rather inconsistent at the moment, and a lot of that has to do with their bot lane. Jezu and Treats, I feel like when they have champions that are like strong winning 2v2 and like can then leave lane and start roaming around the map as well, like they start to take over and help out the rest of the team. So like for me, I think SK is making playoffs. I'm putting them in a B tier.
I'm agreeing.
I'm agreeing. Let's do it.
SK's in B tiers for me as well. Only team in B tier that I have. Now, I did put SK in C tier, I believe, at the start of the split, because obviously rookies. So rookies are very big question marks for me. Either they'll succeed or they'll flop. I think the bot lane, although Tree's not really a rookie, SK is definitely succeeding. I'm loving the picks. I'm loving the things like the Kalista, the Vayne, a bit off meta in a sense compared to other AD carries, but it's working for Jezu and the Jarvan as well. I think their jungle's been kind of underrated in a way. Tinks has been a bit quiet in most of these games, but he's doing his job super, super well, especially when he's embracing picks like the Skarner, I think. And they're also, their solo lane is like blue as well, and the Azir on the TF is also really quiet in these games because he's not making these massive plays, but he's doing his job, I think. And the bot lane is definitely the carry for me in that roster. But for me, it's like I think this is, if we're defining B tier, it's like will make playoffs most likely. I think SK's in that tier.
Yeah, and I'm totally on the same page with you guys. I was actually surprised that you guys are so ready to put them in. But I guess when you look at the standings, it makes sense. Right now, they're tied with Fnatic, so it's kind of hard to take that away from them when they've been able to put up such good results. But totally agree on the bot lane. I think Treats is like, if we look at the support top 4 right now or top 3 at least as, the Mickey Hillisang Kaiser kind of trinity that has been established, I feel like Treats is probably number 4 on that list, coming in number 4. Like we'll see how Trimby develops. There's definitely some other players we have to look at. Vander's a guy who can turn it around and really rise up, but like right now, Treats I feel like is the next support to rise into the like great European playmaker category, and that's super cool to see.
But I also think the only way that SK can be, I think it's like almost like a B- in a sense, because for me, SK, although they are probably going to make playoffs in my eyes because of the growth, the problem is, as with many rookie teams, they're not winning against top teams. And now I don't know what to attribute that to. They haven't beat G2, they haven't beat Fnatic, they haven't beat Rogue. The only top team they've essentially beat is Mad Lions once. So for me, I think if they can pick up a win against Fnatic or G2 or Rogue going towards the end of the split, then I think this team for me is 100% solidified B team.
Yep. Final note, Gen X getting better. Gen X on paper was, so when Gen X first came to the league, I was a big Gen X fan. He came in stage, he played mid lane Aatrox. I was like, this guy's got potential. And then he kind of didn't do anything. And then he went top lane and he did even less as he learned the role. He was not very good. That said, I was super skeptical at the start of the season why this was the guy that they opted to keep. It didn't really make sense to me, but he is making good on that commitment. The dude has been losing very gracefully in matchups that he's supposed to lose, making impact around the map. And then obviously this weekend, very easy to hype up Gen X now, because even when the Kalista lane started to fall apart against Misfits and, the lead that they kind of built early game ended up being not as substantial as they needed it to be because of some mistakes here and there, he came in clutch on that Aatrox and frankly, very excited to see what this guy does, because that is some big development from a player who was essentially the guy you picked like in last year when we had like the weak side top laners. He was like the weakest of the weak side top laners, and that's not a good look when like both the other weak side top laners that people think of, Aromi and Finn, the two that we sent to Worlds, were benched and replaced, right?
Yeah. No, honestly, the game against Misfits was super impressive for me because like it wasn't even like he popped off in lane or anything like that and then was just like using like stupid stats on Aatrox and running people down. It was how he was team fighting with treats and getting like 3-man queue every single time. He was hitting 3 people inside of Jarvan ultimate. Just like, wait, this guy's just regaining 50% of his health bar in 1 Q. This can't be fair.
It was the shy vibes. I'm 100% sure.
It's so good. We had actually so many. If there's one thing that we had in week 5, it was like so many Aatroxes giving us the shy impressions. Like this champion, either we're really good at it or it's maybe not quite as balanced as it needs to be. Maybe need to take it back a little bit.
The champ pops off.
Next up, it was ranked number 8 originally at the start of the season. Vitality.
No, I think Vitality is still a clear cut for anyone, really. I mean, you can be an analyst, you can be a fan. I think that you can easily see the Vitality struggling. They're, for me, a D-tier team. I think I would imagine you guys agree in a sense because this team, there's nothing to be excited about. They did pick up a win with Crowny joining the team against Fnatic, although I would attribute that to Sjokz's curse in a sense.
I agree.
It was somewhat clean in a sense, but I think Fnatic was running it and the curse was there, so I have to see more from Vitality. But for me, this team is nothing's really working for them, and their late game shot calling still is not good in my eyes.
Yeah, it's hard to identify because I also feel like even if you look at some of the ways they draft, like I feel like they get like 3 or 4 picks kind of locked in, and then whatever they lock in 5th, it just doesn't really work with the rest of the team as well. And then like you see some problems in how the rest of the game plays out too. So for me, there's so many like small issues kind of all over the place that it's really hard to pin down like, oh, Vitality need this to fix, and it's not like Vitality bringing in Crownshot immediately fixes all of these things. So Vitality is a team kind of lost and without an identity at the moment.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk to Duke later today and see kind of what's up with this team and what his thoughts are. They're another team that doubled down on a lot of their rookie investments, bringing back Skeens, finally got Melitza, and obviously last year was kind of cursed for Vitality. They never really got to start on the right foot. They had so many visa problems. They had so many problems just getting the roster that they wanted to be able to play, quote, on stage, from home on stage. Always weird to get used to. So yeah, we'll see what they have to say. So I just want to jump ahead then to the next name on the list. 7th place, Excel, 7.35 on average. Actually rated very close to Vitality. Vitality were 8th, but they were 7.41. Excel is a team currently right now in 6th place, tied with Schalke at 5 and 6. And that said, last week was rough. Kieran's been all over Twitter, like, screenshot it, baby. Like, what did the analysts say at the start of the season? Where was Excel going to be when they were in 3rd place? But they're starting to drop now. My question is, do they keep dropping? What's going on with Excel?
I love that they're in 7th in this ranking list, just for the memes itself. Excel in 7th, name a more iconic duo. No, I think Excel's plan at the start of spring was obvious to everyone, right? I think that there's 2 key things at the start of spring. One, teams are still developing, so closing out games is very difficult for them. That's why you'll see in many regions across the world that spring split, there's a lot of clown fiestas that like win games turn into complete shitfest essentially, and it's just a brawl, free-for-all with many kills. That's basically how games progress. So XL said, well, we'll just go full scaling, and because these teams don't know how to close the game because it's early split, we'll pick up some free wins in the early stages of the spring. And although they've picked up their free wins, now they're starting to realize that this isn't going to work for much longer. They're running out of time. Let's be proactive. And then when they pick proactive champs, they look like a completely different team to what they look like with scaling. So I think to me, XL is still a D-tier team. That's why I originally put them at the start of the split. Now I'm going to put them in D-tier right now as well, because they really have not won with anything other than scaling, and they haven't made games look close when they pick early game champs. They pick early game champs against like teams like Mad Lions, and then just flop against the late game team that they're against. They mess up the early game, and then they just lose by default. So yeah, I just don't see enough in this team.
Yeah, for me, I was going to put Excel in a C tier, but in the C tier that's just slightly above the D tier teams, like next to an Astralis.
C minus.
C minus tier, yeah, exactly. Or D plus in this case, because I agree we can put them in D. But yeah, for all the same points there, and I think that it's hard to fault Excel for the way they approach the season, because I do think like if you're trying to farm wins, this is the way to do it, guys. Like if you want to like try and get some free wins, get to playoffs, pick scaling early on in the season, teams are not going to know how to deal with it. The problem is then, and I think like we've done like every single week, we've just put up the stats of like 10th place in every single
it's actually,
early game stat.
Like
I've never seen anything like it.
It's really
like we've had teams with 0 kills at halfway through the season, and their early game stats are not that bad.
Yeah, it's it's abysmal. Like literally when Caedrel and I were prepping for our Excel cast this weekend, and this graphic was reused by Medic, and I think has been used in weeks previous, they're like 10th in every metric that we use to track early game, whether it's how many towers they get early game, whether it's how often they get first blood, whether it's their gold disadvantages. They're on average down like 2K at 15 minutes for a team that is 5-6 right now to be 10th in almost every early game metric. There are so many metrics. We had to do 2 graphics to describe how bad the Excel early game is. And this isn't, to me, I don't want to dogpile on Excel here, but I do think that it's like the fact that you are winning games with this bad of an early game is bad for you. The wins are important, but like even if Excel does make playoffs, which I guess right now is a pretty reasonable goal for them, right?
Yeah.
Like it should be their first priority when they just haven't yet. Like you will not win a best of 5 with it's such, how is anyone claw themselves out of a 2K deficit when they have it every single game? Like that's just not good.
But I think their goal depends on the aspirations for a team. Like if you look at Rogue, for example, they want to go to Worlds, and not only do they want to go to Worlds, they want to like compete at Worlds. So they're playing all these hard to execute comps. You saw them things like Delusion mid, Xayah, all these kind of single target damage, winning lane, win jungle matchup early to scale into late game. Otherwise you flop. And Excel's aspirations, I feel like, are just playoffs. So their goal is just pick up free wins. So I won't really shame them for like trying this strategy, because their goal is making playoffs. They want to get rid of this curse. They just want to make playoffs, and then by summer they can develop. But I think that especially if you pick things like Syndra, Kalista, Jarvan, Renekton, and then you're down like 2k gold at 15 minutes, lost Rift Herald, your mid tower is almost down. Where is your win condition? Especially if you mess up in the early game against things like an Orianna or an Azir. So for me, I think Excel just haven't got enough proactivity.
I was going to say, it feels like Joey just kicked him out of the nest. He's like, all right, we've been guiding you. We've been pretending to fly. We've been doing the practice. And then just that week, he's like, boop, all early game. See ya.
It's like
luck.
kids with the riding the bike with stabilizers on.
It's like maybe if he gives them any late game win condition at all, they'll just play to it instead of playing to early game. So he's like, I'm going to give you literally all early to mid game. And now you go.
But that's the thing with late game scaling. It's like that's how the comms work in pro teams. It's like you have Azir, you have Lilia, you have like a Philios Thresh, and you're like, oh, well, do you want to fight this Drake? No. You got an item soon? Yeah. Okay, let's just farm. And then when you're playing Syndra Kalista, it's like, guys, they're going to get this Drake. We need Dragon win condition because we don't scale well. Yep. Can we fight this Drake? No. Oh, we're so screwed.
I don't want Excel to change anything. Like, I actually just want to keep playing the scaling comps. Like, it's your best way to get wins. And again, playoffs is the goal.
Yep.
Just do that.
And it's good to put that into context, I think. So,
and it works for them.
Yeah.
So.
Right now,
I want to praise Excel while putting them in D tier, is what I'm trying to do.
You're at the top of the bottom.
Keep doing
of
what
the
you're
barrel.
doing, guys.
Just get to playoffs. Next on the list is they're going to be in 6th place here, 6.78, ranked pretty higher. But you can see, if you're watching right now, you can see there's actually a pretty good gap between 5 to 1 and the kind of the 6 to 10 in terms of average ranking. But Misfits were ranked 6th, average score of 6.78 by Twitter. I have a sneaking suspicion that this is the 4th team for D tier, gentlemen, because I don't see a way that Excel gets stuck here and Misfits somehow make it out.
Yeah, Misfits in D tier to me. There's really nothing for me that excites me about Misfits. I think there's nothing that's outstanding to me in a sense. I guess the only real cool player I think that's performing well is Hirit. And yeah, every time I watch their games, it's either just a throw or it's just a stomp. And there's really like nothing that, like, for example, XL, although you can make fun of them for losing every game and being 10th and everything, they're winning games with scaling. So you can attribute something to them, but Misfits just doesn't have an identity to me. Like, their comps are different every game. And although week 1 was really cool with VTO just popping off on Zoe, there's really not been much of a formula to me that works for them. I don't really see anything.
Yeah, and I continue to be shocked because, like, this was a team that I would be like, oh, maybe like preseason expectations would be like borderline playoffs, roughly. Yeah. And you obviously have to look at the bot lane of Kabi and Vander, and like, surely those guys are one of the strongest bot lanes, in Europe. And they're just middling, laning stats. If you look at it, I was actually like really curious because I'm like, when Vander was on Rogue, like he was such a like large factor in terms of like a lot of the like early kills that happened. Him and Inspired were often like tag teaming mid lane and whatnot. And no, like one of the lowest jungle proximities in the entire league. Like they're just not really doing anything. They're not popping off in lane, and then they're also just not going anywhere to do anything else. So it's very strange on them individually. And then I also continue to see the team make large like mid-game like blunders, and Vander and Kabe should that shouldn't be happening when those two players are on your team.
Exactly. When you look at all the top teams like Rogue, for example, you have your staple of veterans which can teach the rookies. So, for example, in this case, I'll label Hirit as a rookie and Beteo because they're new to the team. And Kobe and Vander obviously are new together, but they're veterans in a sense. So if you look at teams like Fnatic with Bippo Hillesang, or even Rogue with like Larson and Inspired, who are now somewhat veterans because they've had a lot of experience in the Worlds, you kind of push that experience onto those players, but I feel like they haven't really been a staple for the team, essentially, because they're making so many basic mistakes in my eyes. Like, for example, Vander goes to ward, Kobe gets caught in the lane while Vander's warding the Tribush, and he dies. So small things like this are just questionable to the point where it's like, how is your communication working? So to me, Misfits just have, there's nothing really working to me. I'm not really sure what to pinpoint exactly, but nothing's really standing out, and all the comps they try are just so much different to each comp every week.
So I'd like to go ahead to Schalke, but I think the one thing that I will say is that like Hirit continues to impress me. I think even when their bot lane was really struggling, his TP bot lane was really good. I think that Razork had a really good idea. He played for himself while his bot lane was getting dope, and I didn't like it at first, but he got that Herald. He funneled a bunch of gold into Kave. So even in that game against SK, there's these glimmers. You know what I mean? Even when Kabe was like leaping forward, almost one-shotting people, there's like these glimmers of like the team that Misfits could be. Mm-hmm. But right now, there's just not consistency. There are promising signs in some games. And as you said, there's also these like really big int moments that I think take so much away from them.
But I will say, out of all the teams which are really low in the standings, Misfits is the one team I think has a small chance to make it to playoffs if they can turn things around, because they are a win streak, lose streak team. And if they practice really hard, I still think they're not just out of it yet.
I wish we didn't have to use like the classic sports analysis, but it's so true for Misfits. Yeah. They're just such a streaky, like
for the last 3 years, it's been like
with
that.
Any roster. Yeah. They're like 9-0 or 0-9. So
that's the one team I would imagine that could just turn the whole tide around.
They're the original Miracle Run team, but they're like the inverse Miracle Run, where it start 9-0 and then instantly go 0-9.
They're the burger flip team.
The pure burger flip. Shout out to the lad, young Checo lad. We're halfway through. SK Gaming currently in B tier. We've got Astralis, Vitality, XL, and Misfits all in D tier. Next team on the list. Ender, I want to get your thoughts on first. Schalke, Null Fear. They went 4-0, or they went 0-2, and then they went 4-0. And then they went 0-4. Is that how it works? So they went 1-1, 4-0. God, I don't even know. They're 5-6. I can't figure that math. They were 4-0 and now they're 0-4. Like, what's happening here? Where are you putting Schalke?
I'm gonna put Schalke next to SK in a B tier.
Oh, okay.
I mean Schalke. You look at it, should still be in playoffs for me. But for me, I look at some of the wins like earlier in the season against like the better teams, and while that's great to have those wins, I don't feel like that will hold up in any sort of like best of 5 situation with this team. I do think that like week on week, I have seen some improvement from Schalke. Specifically, I thought like in week 1, Gilius was completely absent in their early games. Then week 2 onwards, he's really been turning it on. So this team is still a good team. But whereas maybe in week 4, you asked me, I was like hyped. I was like, maybe this team's an A-tier team, like could they, like top 4 or something like this. I don't think that they have the legs to topple like a Mad Lions perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, I have Schalke in C tier for me. I dropped them a tier from my original list.
Oh, I thought you didn't have any C tier.
Yeah, I did move one team to C tier.
Wild.
Schalke. That's the only team I have in C tier here, because I think Schalke is a team where it's like I think the meta suited them super well in the first couple of weeks with Pantheon and Olaf and all these things and Udyr, and it works really well for Gilius. It's proactive, it farms fast. But now when you put him on things like Nidalee and Lilia, it just doesn't feel like he's synergizing well with the team. The team becomes more reactive. And if you're playing Kai'Sa Rell, Kai'Sa Galio, and you're a reactive team, you just can't win. And I think the teams have also figured out that, well, if you take more scaling away from their mid laner, then he's kind of out of the game too. So take away Azir, take away Orianna, and things like this. Put him on things like Zoe. And I just think that when Schalke, you could see Schalke in their game, I can't remember who it was. I think it was against SK, I think it was, where they drafted like Zoe, Nidalee, Kai'Sa.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a G2 draft or a rogue draft.
The game where Tinks literally didn't Skarner until like 25 minutes.
Yeah. And they're playing this really, really hard to execute early game comp. You just see them fall apart, where it's like, well, yeah, guys, let's leave that to G2 Rogue. Let's pick back to our teamfight scaling, which they were doing in the week 2, week 3. But for me, I think they're a C tier team, just based purely on the fact that the only way they win is just either reacting to enemy plays where they're inting and then just scaling out with good teamfight comps.
Yeah, I would say though, like moving on to 11-4, I would expect to see Gilius a lot more on the Skarners and the Jarvans, and I think they look much better when that's going to come through. And like even if you look at this game against SK, it was like Tinks was on the Skarner, and they're playing the scaling. I think the draft from SK or Schalke was just completely abysmal, and I would have given them very slim margins to end up winning that game. So I don't pull much from that one in terms of like how they actually played it out, other than let's not try the G2 2v2 style from them. But yeah, for me, I still feel like they are relatively close in level with SK.
So here's the thing. I'm inclined to agree with you that looking forward, Schalke are going to rise up. But I also put Schalke in C tier. And that means that Democracy wins and Schalke are in C. And Schalke, if that sucks, are on a 4-game losing streak. But I do think that when we look ahead, if we were to tell me that Schalke are a playoff team, I would believe you. And part of that is because 11-4. Part of that is because the expectation that there will be a bit of, if not a significant shift in the jungle meta. You guys would both know more than I do. You play more.
I don't know anything.
You play more. Yeah, I mean, maybe not you. I don't know how much League are you even playing. I know Caedrel plays a ton of League because he streams every day.
I play so much League.
But we'll talk about
Twitch
about
TV.
But I will say, yeah, you're right. I think the 11-4 changes will benefit them, and the Skarner kind of catching them off guard has been a bit of a thorn in their side.
Yeah. So next on the list was Schalke, debated, but at this point, Democracy into C tier. Next on the list, the number 4 team from the Twitter ranking list is Mad Lions. Where do they rank now? Are they number 4? Where are they at? Where are we seeing
I
that?
have Mad Lions in A tier, simply because they took down Fnatic quite handily, although I think that it was quite a bloody game. I think that Mad Lions have found their form. Their bot lane stopped flipping all ins 2v2. Elyoya is looking quite hot. Humanoid's not getting solo killed as much anymore. I feel like they fixed all their small mistakes, which are easy to fix, just toning things down. And Mad Lions are kind of giving me vibes of Mad Lions Summer Split last year with Shadow, with Arome. Just, I think that there's more potential in that roster.
I just agree.
I think that's, it's cool. And I think that what I will say is that coming into the pregame analysis for Fnatic versus Mad, I really expected it to be a turnaround game for Fnatic. And I actually really expected Bwipo to, especially with counterpick, to dominate Armut. Because Armut we saw against Broken Blade in the winning Jace matchup when it was Gnar into Jace. He really struggled. So I was like, wow, Fnatic are going to win any top lane match. And then instantly I'm wrong.
Give me the set,
of course,
baby.
The second that I'm in there, and like Bwipo likes the set, and I don't love Bwipo on set, I won't lie. But like, Armut made good on it. You know what I mean? He took the blind pick. He absolutely smacked. He had way bigger impact in the game overall. And so I will say that I was still skeptical about Armut heading into this, but I think the last few weeks he's been good. Even if it was a difficult Jace laning phase, using 5k damage every team fight. Even if I expected Bwipo with counterpick to dominate, he still was not able to. So a good look from Mad Lion top.
You have to also appreciate the fact they took down Fnatic when Fnatic was playing their aggressive style. And not only did they take down Fnatic by matching them blow for blow, but Fnatic's bot lane had like 2 or 3 kills coming out of lane just purely because of the 2v2s.
Yeah.
And getting these 2v2 kills nonstop. So yes, Kars and Kaiser did into the bit. They weren't the ones being aggressive this time, I must say. It was just Fnatic, Hylissang just like flash comboing on them and taking them off guard. So Upset was like 2 or 3-0 coming out of lane phase, and they still won fights. Upset did his best to try and carry the games, but I think as a team, Mad Lions just look really well-rounded compared to the start of the split.
Yeah, exciting, especially after we talked to Elyoya in week 2, and we saw there's a great video that we put on broadcast that was made by the LV, or
it was
by
super good.
Riot, maybe Riot Spain. I don't actually know who made it. We put it on the broadcast, but it was super good. Elyoya talking about his ambition and doing it all in Spanish, which, as you know, if you ever have to, as an native English speaker, listening to anyone say anything in Spanish, it always sounds 10 times more hype.
Should I speak Spanish on our cast
10
then?
times more sexy. Anytime.
Okay, I'll do it. No, yeah, that was super hype video. Elyoya, super hardworking guy. Mad respect for the guy.
Exactly. No pun intended. Next on the list, they were decidedly in 3rd place. Actually, not even decidedly. They were neck and neck with Fnatic in the vote, but they lost out by 0.14 on average ranking.
Amazing though, if you think about it, considering like how large a brand Fnatic is, and like Rogue's like relatively new being in the scene, to be that high up there. Because like, yeah, for me, Rogue, clear S tier. Like if you don't put him in S tier, you're completely trolling. I feel like they've proven they can play multiple different styles like very successfully. They can play, a little bit more lane dominant, like more aggressive, like speeding up the game. They can play slowing it down. It doesn't matter what type of comp they have, if it's scaling or all in fast, they're smashing lane every single time, and that's just kind of gross. Because their players are just so good. They're never losing.
Yeah, I love Rogue. Just pure on the basis of the fact that like the last couple of years at Worlds or in international events, it's always G2 Fnatic that have to step up and do something. Yes, HGK did something quite a long time ago as well, but it's basically G2 and Fnatic. But for Rogue, they want to be that next team in the history to like be a defined statement team from Europe. Be like, look at us, we're popping off semis, finals, anything like this. We want to make it far at Worlds. And you can already see it from the start of Spring Split. They bring in 2 new players. They look like a whole different team. They've lost all their weak points from last year. And now they're just playing such hard to execute comps because they think that playing these easy comps like scaling and teamfight, they'll just win every game. And they're not here to win every game in Spring Split. They're here to progress, get better at really hard comps that are very hard to execute in the sense where you have to play the game perfectly, so it limits room for mistakes. So when you go to international events, you have lots more to play from rather than just sticking to one style all year, making it to 6th, 7th place, getting to Worlds eventually somehow by some miracle, and then just flopping. which is essentially what they did in a sense when it came to summer.
If you remember to summer last year too, like everyone was so hyped on both them and Mad Lions during the summer season. Obviously, like knocking G2 down. G2 didn't win the regular season. They of course won in playoffs, but I am more excited about Rogue this year, and I think they are far better this year than they were last summer. And like I think last summer, if you were saying like Rogue had like a legit shot to like topple G2, I think that was ambitious. I think that was like too far right. I think that was pushed a little bit too much. But this year, I do think it is legit, and I think this team is a serious threat come playoffs.
And I gotta say, like one big shout out to Otawamne. He always memes about not getting enough attention, but weak side king. Like this dude has been absolutely playing out of his mind every single game. And the other player that I want to shout out because. Again, someone I doubted, similar to Gen X, is Han Sama, because Han Sama made big splash when he first came in. He was the guy that like kind of surpassed Kabe and was contesting Reckless, and you had Reckless talking in his interviews about how great Han Sama was, and the Misfits went to World, and then Han Sama kind of just dropped off the face of the map. And then there were people every season it was like, oh, is this the season where like Han Sama does it? He's like scraping into top 20 lists. He's having these games where he's a little bit more passive unless he's playing Draven. But in the last 2 years, Han Sama has been absolutely unleashed. Aggressive Han Sama. Now that it's here and now that it has stayed, I am like 100% back on the Han Sama hype train. This dude is an absolute monster. Like he's playing really well with Trimby. And while, yes, like he's not always, sometimes I feel like he's the center of attention because he's just like, he's a dude that you want to believe in. But I think that like he does deserve that praise. He does deserve that support and is very much a big piece of like a very, very star-studded roster. So
I think that's the key thing. That whole roster is star-studded. Even if you think of their mid-jungle as their strongest point or like the best mid-jungle duo in the league, like there's still Han Sama in bot lane. There's still Otawamne in top lane. Like this Rogue is so much different from the Rogue from last year. Even though Rogue finished first place in the regular split in summer, this is a whole different Rogue. And I think this is a title contender team.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about who they're going to be fighting in the finals. We expect. Who knows with G2? It's always a bit of a flip.
You forgot Fnatic.
Oh, I did forget Fnatic. They're third on the list. Oh, that might tell you where they're going to place. I'm so sorry.
Sjokz cursed them out of existence.
Yeah, I was like, wow, we have just enough time to talk about one team. So we're going to have to kind of speed through this. I'm not going to lie. I got a little schedule to keep. So Fnatic, I think we can say not S tier. They were above them. They had big expectations. I still think this is a good roster, but obviously the last 2 games have been pretty rough. How much does this knock Fnatic down?
Yeah, for me, still A-tier team. They're not quite an S-tier team, just purely based on the fact of inconsistency. Now, if you're a Fnatic fan, don't be too scared that Fnatic might be looking weak in this tier list or just in general over the last couple of days in the LEC, last couple of weeks. I think there is still a lot of room for growth for them, and you could see the signs of hope in like week 3, week 4, week 5. Just this last weekend, way too much aggression, losing to teams like Vitality, kind of dropping the ball a little bit. I think they need to tone it down a bit, center their attention on being consistent, and then just find something that works for them.
Yeah, and I think that especially for this team, like the biggest thing they need to work on is like choosing the right fights, because like I know they want to be like the aggressive team that's like going in all the time and really challenging their opponents, but if they want to break into S tier, you know that G2 is better in the skirmish, like in the skirmish game, like they will outthink you in those situations, they will know how to outplay you, and Rogue are a more calculated team, I feel like, that can like dodge away from the difficult looking fights. So I think that if this team wants to break in, that's the sort of hurdle they have to overcome. Yeah, because I think it works really well against a lot of other teams, but Fnatic want to be a title contender, and that's big for them.
And again, credit to Fnatic for staying as competitive as they have with the top teams when rebuilding this roster. Again, it's another roster that is star-studded with talent, but I think that we've talked about Upset rising up, how fantastic he's looked in these games. The Upset Hylissang duo lane feels really good.
They are smashing.
They are so good right now. Like
true.
I would watch, screw the rest of them. I'll just watch this bot lane replays like all day. These guys are always going in. It's so exciting to watch. Now, Whipple obviously has come off of 2 pretty rough games, but in general, we've also seen big carry performances from Whippo. The Riven game immediately comes to mind where he absolutely obliterated Gen X on the Vladimir, I think. Sorry, Gen X, that was a horror show.
But I think Fnatic is like this unleashed beast that is just like violently swinging everywhere.
Yeah.
G2 is just dodging everything and Rogue's not even close to them. But if they get strong enough, then eventually they'll hit someone and they'll one-shot them. So,
or someone can chain the beast a little bit or teach the beast. It doesn't just need to be like, if you teach the bear to box, maybe the bear will do a little bit better than like,
yeah. But I think Fnatic, if they can just find their form and just hit their shots, I think they'll be good. I think they'll be really good.
Let's bench the set. give me back the Urgot, give me the Rengar, give me all the spice.
Don't forget the singed and the riven. Singed, dude. I love it against top esports. It was class.
It was pure class. Shout out to you, Bwipo. But again, the set, I don't love it. You have a very good win ratio on it, but I just feel like the split push set build is never that good. Even though they've buffed it a million times, I believe that it's done well on scrims. I just don't love to see it. Give me something a little bit more unique, a little bit more spicy. That brings us now, officially this time, not just because I'm neglecting Fnatic, sorry again, Fnatic, to G2 Esports, our final team on the list. And generally, I don't think it'll surprise anyone to see this team on the top. So kind of to focus the conversation, I want to talk briefly about how this team has changed with Reckless, like what changes you see, because clearly it's still the number one team in the league. A lot of their identity, it feels like, has stayed very similar. But what have you actually seen that's changed for G2 at the top now that Reckless is on the roster?
I think that Reckless was such a key part in Fnatic because he kept his team back when they wanted to go too aggressive. I think that's quite an obvious point, but I think he's implemented that into G2 quite well. Like, I think the biggest thing is when you saw their game, I believe it was on the Saturday, I think it was, when they were against Schalke. They took down 2 inhibs and they could have gone for the end, but they all backed off. And now, to me, G2 last year would have just gone for the Nexus towers. They had waves. They would have just gone for a 5v5 under Nexus towers. But Reckless was the first to run back, and then everyone just kind of followed him and they ran away with the Senna and the Sion. So to me, Reckless has just brought this new voice in the team where it's like, guys, we don't really have to fight this. Yes, we're probably had the advantage in the fight, but there's like a 20-30% chance we throw here. I'm not going for that. Let's back off. So I think Reckless is just a really stapled, hyper scaling AD carry, very, very good late game insurance, very secure. You know he's not going to end, he's always going to be even or ahead, and he's just a good passive voice to keep the team in a good state.
Reckless is the designated driver for G2.
Yeah,
that's the best way to describe.
It's so good, actually.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
I think honestly that's a pretty perfect summary. When you look,
his summary was cleaner than mine.
Yeah, it's very, very concise, actually, very well done. And it's kind of a last note. Do you still feel like is G2? We talked about Rogue being able to contest them, but is G2, like, if we were to make an S+ tier, would G2 sit alone in that tier, or are they really neck and neck with Rogue right now?
Do you know what? My honest opinion, I would put G2 in an S+ tier if the games were in a stage environment. On an online environment, I think S even. And both teams are even on S. But I think because of the players on G2, if that was on a massive stage in front of a crowd, I think G2 would be a tier above.
Is that because of like the actual like stage and like being there live, or is that attached to like important games? Because like for me, I would also increase like G2's gameplay when they're in a final compared to when they're in, you know.
Yeah, if it was G2 in a best of 5 in a final in front of a crowd, I think players like Reckless, Caps, Jankos, Wunder, Mickey, they would all shine, like finals, MSI, all these things. Whereas Rogue has never really played on that kind of ambiance, you know, that kind of environment. So I think that they would play slightly worse in a sense because I think the nerves would kick in. But I think that's when G2 comes into their form and the clutch moments come out. You know, like Reckless, Penta killing on stage in Sweden, all these things. All of this history behind these players. When they're on a massive stage, I think they just have a bigger edge.
Does the Ottawamne semifinals curse come back? Where he's like perma in third place matches? Is just like doomed? Hey, we talked about the Sjokz like cursing people. If we're going to get superstitious here, we have to follow everything
What if Sjokz did a curse on a semifinals match between Ottawamne and a team, but she did curse on the other team? Which curse wins?
That's the real battle. Screw the actual semifinal. Let's see which curse is stronger. So we now have our final tier list. I'll read it through. In S tier, we have Rogue and G2. In A tier, we have Mad and Fnatic. B tier is SK Gaming. C tier is Schalke No Fear. And D tier, it's a full house here. We have Astralis, Vitality, XL, and Misfits. Of course, this is where we think the teams sit currently. A lot can change looking ahead. But we'll talk a little bit about our playoffs predictions in a bit. In the meantime, I want to take the opportunity to sit down to talk to Duke about what we can expect from Vitality as a team who is once again struggling to find their form in the LEC. It's now my distinct pleasure to be joined by the head coach for Vitality, Duke. Duke, welcome. Thank you so much for joining today. How is life over there in the Vitality house on the Vitality team?
Surprisingly good. We had a really rough split, even a rough year last year, but the morale has always been pretty high. And at the moment, everyone is really focused on getting better and improving together. There is a good mindset within the team. So all good despite the bad results.
And I have to say that is impressive because, I mean, you already said it yourself, but 2020, it just felt like you guys never got to start properly. You had visa issues. You had so long you spent just trying to get your roster together on stage that it never feel like you guys really got the chance to develop. And then coming in this year and having it also be difficult, I imagine can be quite hard. Do you still feel like Are you seeing week to week kind of the progress and development that continues to give you like hope in this Vitality lineup? Because you're one of the few teams that committed to the vast majority of your players, that that doubled down on a roster that did have a really rough year.
It's vastly different from last year. I think this roster, I doubled down on it, but it's the roster that we mostly saw on the last 4 weeks of the last year. And I think we were performing pretty well. I mean, better and better at this point. And at the beginning of this year, we just changed Cabo for Ziganda. And when we arrived in LEC, we were super optimistic actually, because we were smashing scrims before preseason. And after the first week, I mean, when we arrived at the first week, we threw 2 games where we were 5k gold ahead, and especially the game against Schalke where we 5v2 against the Nexus. It was a bit brutal for us, and it kind of broke the team. I think since then everyone has been traumatized, but we are like, basically we were improving a lot during preseason. Then we fell down off a cliff after having our confidence broken after this week and the next 2 weeks against the top 4, and now we are slowly climbing back. I think we hit our low on the week 4 against SK and Excel, where we were barely not playing. And at the moment, we are just working on our confidence. And from now on, I think we can only improve. But it might take a bit of time still. But I think we are on the right path.
What do you do as a coach when it comes to those situations where the confidence really does feel broken? Because I think one of the big struggles of having a league format as opposed to like a tournament structure format is that it always feels like you're trying to repair a ship that is in motion, right? You don't have time to stop playing, to like reset the mental. You have like maybe 1 day off a week from what I hear from most teams, and then you have to go right back to practicing. So how do you actually, as a coach, support your players feeling better, getting that confidence back? Like, what is that process actually like for you guys?
And as a coach, I think it's the worst thing that can happen, to have to have confidence issues and to have difference from scrims to stage. On the other side, being bad in scrims and being good on stage, which I had, for example, in the past in teams like Splice, for example, is stressing, but also pretty good because we get some wins. But in this case, it's really hard because there is no, I think, secret to solve it, and you can't just say to players, just believe in yourself. Of course, they know this kind of thing. This is kind of the things that we want to show to the viewers. But the reality of the coaching is that you are 12 hours a day with those guys, and you have to give them specific advices for them to become better. And I think what we did and what we are currently doing is that we try to link the micro aspect of the game, so the specific, I would say, gameplay situations, with more the mindset and the mental that you need to approach those kind of situations, and how players need to, like, which mindset do they need at each point of the game to deal with every specific situation. And a specific situation can be contesting a mid wave, contesting a bush, how do you position before an objective, those kind of things. And instead of having a super deep strategic approach, we are focusing more on the mental aspect of it, so that they know what they should be doing in those cases and how they should be feeling in those cases. Because what we struggle, especially, for example, if you look at our lowest performances, which were the games against SK and Excel, it was games where we were not really playing. Actually, we were, like, you could see, for example, like if you look at, I gave this example to somewhere else, but if you see when we play against Excel, you see Patrick tries with Sjokz, like, walking up to us, and he's alone, like, I mean, he's dead, but we are so afraid that we walk back, and we don't contest things. And this is something that we reviewed all the situation, and okay, in the situation, this is a moment where we have to walk up, and maybe someone has to say to walk up, but technically everyone, like, it should be a bit instinctive. And yeah, basically we are trying to solve case by case at the moment where we are not feeling confident in ourselves.
Yeah, and that sounds like a big undertaking, but I really do like the approach of rather than focusing on like specific strategic things, trying to teach this mindset thing and trying to slowly make mindset and mentality a little bit more structured and a little bit more strategic, as opposed to this thing that it's just like, just feel good, just be confident, just go in when you think you can go in, but actually trying to like establish a bit more structure there. I think it's a really smart way to tackle it. I do want to know though, you talked about like specifically the Cho'Gath instance where, you know, he should have absolutely been dead if the players had the confidence to go in. You guys recently brought Crownshot onto the roster, mixed success since he's been there, but I'm curious if when he joined the team, is this something that was made easier because he didn't have, let's say, the same baggage that some of the other guys did? Was he more easily able to kind of be that voice of confidence in those situations? What were you actually looking for him to provide for the team when you brought him on?
And Crowny has really a different personality than the others. First, he's more experienced, and it adds a lot, as we were the youngest team in the LEC. With the least experience, I think adding a bit of experience actually helped us more than we thought. In terms of personality, Crown is like someone who really knows what he wants, you know. And in game, because I talked about him bringing a lot of shot calling ability to the team. It might have been a bit vague. It's more that he brings a bit of decisiveness in the mid-late game about what we should do, which fight we should take. You know, because our problem is that whenever there was a good fight for us, we were too indecisive to take it, and we were waiting the last moment to take it, which is the moment where it becomes a good fight for the enemy. And we were taking a fight not on our terms, and we were getting wiped. Where at some point you need to say, okay, now we fight. Here, like, they are crossing this line. We have to fight. We have to jump on them, and this is the part where we were struggling, right? And Crowny is really bringing this decisiveness, and on some calls, whether they are good or bad, but sometimes it's better to have 5 people going in the same direction than 5, even if the call is not the best. And for example, against Fnatic, when we decide to run down top at the end of the game, and like Wipo tries to catch Crowny and they get taste and we win. This was Crowny just saying, okay guys, go in, don't stop. So Crowny brings a lot of decisiveness, confidence in himself, and is all around. Also, he remotivated the team, even if the atmosphere was not the worst at this point. I think he really brought everyone together again. Because I mean, it's kind of the honeymoon period, you know, all the time where it's always a fresh start when someone comes to the team, and at this point it was needed.
Yeah, and it's really good to hear that it has been a positive impact for you guys, and a good win overall versus Fnatic, and excited to see kind of how it develops in the week to come. To round things out, I would love to know what you're telling to the team and what the team as a whole, like what you guys feel like your ambition is for this split. Playoffs isn't out of the picture, but it would take a miracle run similar to what Schalke had last season. What is your actual goal? What are your actual ambitions for this team for this season in spring, and then maybe for the year as a whole?
It's hard to say, because when we arrived in the beginning of the split, we were beating pretty much everyone in scrims. We were feeling super confident, hoping that we would be a top team, and the harsh reality came in, and we fell down off a cliff. And now, what is our ambition? I think for spring split, of course, playoff is still in the back of our mind. But as you said, like, we need to basically win at least 6 out of our 7 games. Which sounds hard, especially when we face G2 and Mad Lions next week. But everything is possible. We'll see. But what is important for us at this point is to prove ourselves first that we still have it. And I think we do. I think it was just a matter of confidence. And if we get this confidence back a bit, I think then we'll be able to work fast on the other aspects of the game that we already worked on before. So to prove ourselves that we can still be strong, and that we are strong for summer split, and to some extent also prove our fans who have been supporting us all the way, even through those really harsh time, and to give them back something in spring split to make them wait for a good summer split.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Shigenda talked about it in his interview as well after his really big pop-off Aatrox performance, how great the Vitality fans have been. So shout out again to all the Vitality fans who continue to support the team through thick and thin. And Duke, thank you for the interview and for your very candid answers. Oftentimes when teams are struggling, it's very easy, I think, for a coach to just be like, well, we're working on it. Things are going to get better. Team mentality's fine. So I really appreciate you opening up and being honest about expectations, about the disappointment, and about kind of the ambition and the changes that can come for the team in the future. Thanks again for taking the time.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll send it back to talk about the week upcoming. We'll wish Vitality a good luck up against Mad Lions and G2 in the week to come, and we'll be rejoined by Caedrel and Ender in a moment. All right, welcome back. Thanks again to Duke for taking the time to talk to us, see how Vitality improves week to week. But for now, we're going to be looking ahead to what is coming our way, and that means a couple different things. But first, it means patch 11.4. We were promised no gigantic patches in the middle of seasons anymore, but they lied to us. This patch is huge. There's basically an entire jungle rework. But as two resident jungle experts, what actually matters in this patch? Like, what do people actually need to be aware of for pro play?
So the jungle XP camps got nerfed slightly, levels 1 through 9, which is the 5 levels of jungle, and the gold got reduced a tiny bit too. So basically just nerfing the power farming junglers who can just sit there and get the same level of solo laners with the same XP and the same gold. And essentially just want to take that out of the game to make jungle more of an overall impactful role in the game in terms of like just ganking more and like being more on the map rather than just sitting there jungle power farming and then 1v1ing everyone. So I think for me, it's like a 10 to 15%. I don't know what the exact math is. Reduction on the XP and gold in sense. So yeah.
Yeah, in my experience from working with Riot about junglers is that they want junglers to not be ganking so much, but also to not be farming so much. And that's why Scuttle Crab is a thing, because they want you to fight the other jungler over Crab now. Honestly, these changes just reduce the power overall. Like, honestly, I look at it and a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the farming junglers are dead. And I don't think that's true. I think like they are weaker overall than they were on the previous patch. But realistically, like if having levels and gold is still a good thing, you can still play Nidalee and get a lot of that. And you will get more than that than the Jarvan that is ganking.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is, first couple of things are, it's reduced a tiny bit. You can't really feel it. I've talked to a lot of junglers and scrims. They don't really feel it too much. It's not a huge impact. It only hurts a tiny bit. And I think the jungle will basically be, right now it's like 80% carry junglers. I think now it's going to go down to more of a 50-60% carry junglers, and tank junglers can slot in things like Jarvan, Gragas, Zac, Sejuani, all these things. And it'll be more of an even ground for both sides of the jungle meta. I don't think it's going to shift it fully to tank. I don't think it's going to make carry dead. It's going to be more of an even playing field.
I'm not going to get my hopes up, but that sounds like balanced and potentially healthy jungle state where you could play a tank.
Jungle
or a
will
carry.
never be healthy.
Yeah,
it's just not possible.
It's not possible.
You'll still get level 2 gank Drakos and you'll still be mad. So don't say it's balanced.
Doesn't matter what level I get ganked, I'm always mad. That's my secret, Caedrel.
The problem is not junglers, it is stupid laners that don't know how to play against junglers.
Yeah, Caedrel, to quote Caedrel, jungle diff is always support diff.
It's true. If your support's always
and support
for crab,
diff is always ADC diff,
always roaming to your buffs, just killing me. I'm Bard and my team has not me under his tower.
No matter what role you are, there is a plausible argument as to why it's literally everyone else's fault that it's bad, unless you're getting solo killed.
It's true. Top is jungle diff, mid is support and jungle diff, AD is support diff, and jungle is support diff. So what's that tell you? Support is broken.
Okay. I'll just take
That's
that at face value. I'm not going to follow up on that anymore.
It's a good thing it's a team game.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's why we all play it as solo queue, right? That's why that's the most popular.
It's why I don't play chess, right? It's because I have no one to blame but myself.
Same.
Are you kidding me, Knight? Why did you move there?
God damn it.
Oh, God. All right, guys, we talked about the bet. This is my favorite bet that we've done so far because it's so viscerally painful in a way that isn't spicy. So
there's going to be some throwing up in this bet, I'm sure.
It's going to be difficult. So what's going to happen here is that we talked about Twitter or our power ranking list, and you guys have that now. And that's our general read on where teams sit currently. But in order to figure out where we think teams are going to end the split at, what the final standings are going to be, we're going to predict the playoffs. These 6 teams that will make playoffs in the order that they will make them in. And how do we make this interesting? How do we make, a prediction like this interesting? Well, we need some stakes. So there are 3 of us. So how this is going to work is the 2 people who lose the quiz or who lose the bet will participate in a quiz hosted by the 3rd person, in this case, the winner. The quiz will be all about the regular season. It'll be kind of like the duo queue quizzes, but with there'll be some fun facts. There'll be some interesting stuff in there. And you're like, a quiz, who cares? Here's the stakes. Every time you get a question wrong, you will drink out of an unlabeled coffee cup in front of you. 80% of the cups, coffee. 20% of the cups, fish sauce. You will not know. You will pick a cup without being able to smell a cup, and you will drink.
I'm nauseous, dude. I didn't even eat breakfast this morning. I want to throw up.
Why did I say yes to joining EUphoria?
So we can't play Russian roulette because That's horrible and
Because we
horrific.
don't have enough casters as
We
is.
don't have enough casters. We need more, to be honest, and we can't really afford just, offing them one at a time every time they get a playoff prediction wrong or a silly stats question wrong. So instead, we're going to do it with fish sauce. So instead of literal death, it will be horrible, uncomfortable pain and misery, which hopefully...
You decide which is
I mean, the
worse.
Hot Wing bet did pretty well, so we think you guys will like this one too. So the TLDR is, right now, we're going to run through our playoffs predictions for each teams. We're going to have a chance at the end to change them, because remember, whoever is the most correct will win. If there's a tie, we'll figure out how to break the tie. Maybe a coin flip. Maybe there'll be something with win percentage. We will figure it out. But there will be an opportunity to change the list at the end for each analyst, just in case they want to go for something that is more of a gamble, if they do want to take a risk, or if the lists are too similar. So to recap, winner of this bet will get to host the quiz. The other two will have to compete in a Russian roulette fish sauce challenge, is the easiest way to describe it. Okay, that's the description. Let's talk about where we're going to rank the teams, where they're going to finish. So I think what we'll do is we'll start at 6 and we'll work our way up to... Actually, that's just too confusing. There's no way for anyone in podcast land to follow that. We're just going to each go one
Just
at a time.
go one by one.
Tell you your entire list. Yeah, because otherwise it's actually impossible to follow.
You start.
All right, my list. In 6th place, Schalke No Fear. In 5th place, Fnatic. In 4th place, SK Gaming. In 3rd place, Mad. 2nd place, Rogue. 1st place, G2.
All right, we're safe.
Okay. Well, you're getting some fish sauce, Ender. What's yours?
What do you mean you're safe? 2 people lose. There's only one winner. Everyone else loses.
Oh, no, you're right. Okay, I didn't think that far ahead.
Ender. Okay, so again,
right.
In 6th place, Schalke No Fear. In 5th place, Fnatic. 4th place, SK. 3rd place, Mad. 2nd place, Rogue. 1st place, G2.
And that's Drakos.
Okay.
That's my list. What do you got?
Yeah. Okay, 6th place, SK. 5th place, Schalke. 4th, Mad. 3rd, Fnatic. 2nd, Rogue. 1st, G2.
That plot armor getting Fnatic back up to 3rd, baby.
I mean, Sjokz isn't going to do it.
Okay.
No, I'm calling in a favor.
And we've officially burned the Sjokz monologue jokes. We're done now.
Yeah, you better
It's
hope
like
so.
6 this
You
episode.
better hope so. Your ass is drinking some fish sauce, buddy.
My heart's pounding. Okay. 6th place, Schalke. 5th place, SK. 4th place, Fnatic. 3rd place, Mad Lion. 2nd place, G2. 1st place, Rogue.
Oh, they're all so different. Okay.
I was really worried we were all going to have the same one. So this is
Oh my
excellent.
god, man, I'm flipping it like a burger.
Okay, so the one thing I do want to talk about is like really quickly tell me let's each go through and say what we think our most bold prediction is and why we made it, so people get a little bit more
I
context.
think mine is Rogue over G2 for 1st place.
Why do you think that?
I just think Rogue are gonna... I just have a feeling Rogue are gonna win the split. They won in summer. I think they're gonna win in spring. I think G2 are gonna meme around too much. I feel like they're gonna drop a couple wins to some teams by just trolling a bit.
I'm so worried that's just your silver bullet that just wins you the thing.
I'm going Rogue over G2. And then my other one, I guess, in a small sense, is Mad Lions over Fnatic. I just think Mad Lions are probably gonna be more consistent in spring split, and Fnatic they're gonna take some more time to find their footing.
Yeah.
So I think Mad Lions over Fnatic there, and then SK over Schalke in terms of 5th, 6th.
I mean, I don't really feel like I'm taking many risks with my list.
Which maybe may make you the winner, because I took some flips and definitely Caedrel took some flips.
I just went how I see it.
Wait, what was your
know?
list again?
So G2, Rogue, Fnatic, Mad, Schalke, SK.
Yeah, you really did not take any risks.
We and Caedrel, I think,
He took the
overthought
whole
it.
standings.
Well, because we were all worried about our lists being too similar, so we're going to game a little bit so they're not all the same. And Ender was the one who took no risks, and me and Caedrel are out here to overthinking it ourselves.
Yeah.
No, if you show up to host
And
the
he
bet,
wins.
and then we just sit here and sup.
I mean, technically, based on standings, Mad and Fnatic are flipped, Schalke, SK are flipped.
Yeah.
But it's
I think that's pretty reasonable.
So you have
Basic
Fnatic in 3rd,
performance.
right?
Fnatic in 3rd, yeah.
I think that's maybe a bit risky. My boldest prediction is SK in 4th. I think I think Fnatic are going to lose a few more games before they come back together, and I think Schalke maybe it's so tough because maybe 11-4 just bails Schalke out, but Gilius weeks 2, 3, and even week 4 compared to Gilius weeks 2, 3 compared to week 4, 5 is pretty
And
rough.
I think the interesting thing about the crazy thing about this is if I predict Rogue G2 and it's the other way around, I've lost 2 points, not 1. Because they're both out of selection.
Oh yeah, there's no being saved.
And then there's Mad, Fnatic, SK, Schalke, who are going to be between 1 win from each other. And if either of them are just swapped in reverse order, you essentially end the whole thing with 0 points. It could be so. Yeah, I'm screwed. You're screwed.
I'm not going to make these questions easy for you guys either.
Wait, yeah, we can make the quiz together. Oh wait, no, we can't.
I'm not going to make
Oh wait, yeah, you
No, you
can't. You would
can't.
have to make it with Phil.
You just have to get crazy stats.
Yeah.
There you go, dude.
Easy.
Yeah.
No,
Wait, why are we
that's actually
talking as
the
if
play.
he's already won?
I don't know.
Because I already
We're already
have.
embracing
all
it.
right. All right. One last time. let's just do lists in order. We'll do 1 through 6 so everybody keep track.
Okay.
Drakos. Here is my playoff prediction finalist for the top 6. G2, Rogue, Mad Lions, SK, Fnatic, Schalke 04.
Ender, auditioning for G2, Rogue, Fnatic, Mad, Schalke, SK.
Caedrel's playoff predictions: Rogue, G2, Mad Lions, Fnatic, SK, Schalke.
Oh, it's gonna be. I don't want to drink fish sauce.
No, of course.
Spicy wings. I'm like, whatever.
Dude, I don't even like fish. I don't eat fish.
The
ever.
worst part is I told
It's
you, I was
horror.
like, I want to eat the spicy wings. Get me in on a bet. And now it's fish sauce.
You
What
can't
is
give 'em-
wrong
It's
with
not
you?
a bet if you want to eat the spicy wings.
And the bets are going
Also,
to get worse
shout out
and
to
worse.
Phil, who watches a bunch of like Korean challenge shows and gave us the inspiration for this one.
I'm sure of it.
I just keep cringing.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that this is only the start of something beautiful.
Bro,
like summer next season Euphoria is gonna be like, watch Drakos and Caedrel get thrown around upside down on a roller coaster after drinking 7 liters of water while they try to predict their playoffs predictions or their play-ins predictions for Worlds.
Yeah, like,
oh my god, it's
oh,
gonna.
I'm sorry, you tired, like you want to see Conor McGregor fighting again in MMA, but think that after his most recent loss, he's a little washed. Watch him come assault Caedrel and Drakos physically for each question
watch
that
the
they got
loser
wrong.
of this Euphoria bet fight Conor McGregor in the octagon. Oh, I love it.
No,
Content.
No, I've already got my girlfriend's like, please stop doing spicy bets. I'm like laying on the couch, like writhing in pain for like the entire day after this bet. And she's like, was it that bad at the time? I was like, no. She's like, then why are you in so much pain now? I'm like, we still have to suffer for it. And she's like, please stop. Nope. We go harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you guys see is like the video of the bet happening, but let me tell you, there's after effects.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the worst thing is that we have to find something hot enough that you get a physical reaction out of us. But the worst part is always the aftermath where you just have to sit there with like burning
Yeah,
lips.
The toilet gets carpet
Oh
bombed.
my god! Yeah, I don't know if you need to be that specific, but yeah, that's 100% what happens. Thank you for painting that picture. Those are our playoff predictions, but let's talk a little bit about week 6. We've got a couple of interesting matches coming up here. I'm personally excited for Mad versus SK. I think that's going to tell us a lot. Schalke versus Rogue is also very interesting.
G2 versus Fnatic.
But yes, inevitably, the matchup that we have to talk about: Old Kings, Dynasty Kings, Legacy Kings, Reckless,
Kings, curses, legacy.
Backstab, Betrayed, Revenge Rebirth. G2 versus Fnatic. Right now, I think it's pretty easy to say that G2 should be the favorites based on what we saw from Fnatic in the previous week. But if Fnatic are going to win this game, what's it going to take? Ender, I'll go to you first.
Well, to be fair, we said G2 were the favorites last time and Fnatic won last time.
That's
so
true.
Let's give them some credit. Honestly, because I like to draw back to the last game, and honestly, every time G2 and Fnatic play against each other, it is always a complete bloodbath. And I feel like in sort of the style that Fnatic are right now, like it'll be a hot or a cold day, and it'll be one way or the other. And so for me, like particularly, like I want to see Bwipo back on something like very powerful, like strong counter pick in the top lane. Get the set out of here.
Yeah.
Bring back some more of those more interesting picks. And then as far as like for G2, if Reckless, make sure he's the good driver on the day of can keep
It's
G2 a
actually-
little bit in line. It'll be all right.
It's so funny because Reckless is now the designated driver for G2.
Yeah.
But like Hylissang and Upset are so completely unchained.
Yeah.
It's
like
they're like driving on the road next to you, like trying to like bump a car.
Oh no.
Have you seen the film Baby Driver? It's
Yeah.
like that's G2. Reckless is the driver. They rob the bank. They get all the kills. Reckless is ready to get them out of there. No, I think G2 Fnatic. I mean, if G2 have internet issues, obviously Fnatic might win again, but they won't, hopefully. So that'll be a good one. That's almost for memes. I think, the most important thing to me is bot lane. I think if Upset and Hylissang can smash bot lane like they're doing, especially against players like Reckless and Mickey, and then take over the game, then that's essentially going to win them the game. I think counterpick for Bwipo would be really important, or getting him on a good matchup. I think mid jungle, as much as the impact that it does have in the game, I don't think I'm looking at mid jungle the most here because Selfmade's been quite quiet. Niski's playing supportive champions. I think on the other side, Fnatic, there's just not for G2. Sorry, Jankos and Caps. Although I would like to see something like Nidalee Rise or something aggressive, I think bot lane's going to be the place of action. I think if Hylissang can start the game off with 1 or 2 kills in bot, he looks like he's got so much more confidence on engages. It feels like if Hylissang's on the back foot in lane, he just gets caught a lot. Whereas if he's on the front foot in lane and he's winning it, he's like in your jungle, in your face, flanking you from the other planet over there. It's really weird. So
honestly,
I love to see it.
Who's ever casting this, just get the pip of the picture in picture, the little square image of just bot lane and just keep it on bot lane.
Or like a split screen.
Just split screen. Just keep me bot lane and then whatever the hell else anyone wants to see, I don't care. Like, just let me watch this bot lane matchup. This is like, this has got to be a clinic for both sides. Or they could both just grief it. And it could just be Hex flashes out of the bush simultaneously for both supports. And it could be like...
That's kind of how the game went last time, if I recall. Both supports were sprinting it a little bit.
And that's still
What if we get
entertaining.
Senna Scion again?
I think
Bruh.
here's my suspicion though. I think that after the like 9th time that Ezreal failed to E out of that he learned how to do it. And my suspicion is that other players having watched that will learn to use their dashes.
I have to dodge. Okay. What if he doesn't have a dash?
Ooh.
What if he's playing something like, I don't know, Kai'Sa?
Drama,
Because
intrigue, mystery.
one thing that we missed out on the 11.4 patch is Samira is dead.
It's true.
Samira is gone. And that's a big thing for Fnatic because upset Samira was looking insane.
True.
Clean. Yeah.
So that's actually going to hurt them, I think, on 11.4.
Also some Kai'Sa nerfs.
Also, Selfmade being the carry jungle that he is, 11.4 jungle nerfs. So, yeah, I don't think it's a great patch for Fnatic, whereas for G2, it's like, Jankos, Sejuani time, Jarvan, frontline, no more spears, not flipping it. So, yeah, I think G2 is favored a little bit slightly as well because of the patch.
And watch, we're going to hype it up, and it's going to be like Janna versus Lulu bot lane support matchup and just be the biggest snooze fest of all
But that
time.
could be cool, like Vayne Lulu versus Kog'Maw Yuumi.
Get me out, Caedrel. I want people to die in the laning phase.
Have you seen the Kog'Maw skins? Pugmaw?
No, they're terrible.
No, Pugmaw is terrible, but the Beemaw is cute as hell.
Nah.
Pugmaw is so bad. Okay, anyway, we're going to get... This is a whole other thing. We'll talk about the worst and best skins in League of Legends. Actually, it's another segment because I love talking about skins. Anyway, this has been Season 7, Episode 6. Thank you so much, Ender, for joining us, making some tier lists, making
Why
some
was 6
predictions.
afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9.
I have another one, but it's not appropriate. Anyway, this has been Season 7, Episode 6 of the Euphoria podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We hope that you enjoyed it. We ran a little bit long, but we hope you like the extra content that we're bringing you, and we'll see you next week for more League of Legends discussion.
Bye-bye.